Hi, I'm Helen, and this is Why Mums Don't Jump, busting taboos about leaks and lumps after childbirth, all the stuff that happens to your pelvic floor that no one ever talks about. Incontinence, prolapse, pelvic pain, problems that affect millions of women, 1 in 3. I'm one of them. I have a prolapse. My pelvic organs fell out of place after the birth of my second child 5 years ago. And if you told me then I'd be speaking about this stuff out loud, I would have told you to give your head a wobble. Hi, so I know that I said that last week's episode was the last in the series, and it was supposed to be, but then someone got in touch with me who I had been trying to get on the podcast, Rachel Horn, the newsreader from Chris Evans' Breakfast Show on Virgin Radio. I had emailed her a while back because she spoke about her urinary incontinence on air in front of hundreds of thousands of people on a live radio programme. And, well, if that's not tackling the stigma, then I don't know what is. So she kindly agreed to have this chat with me, and we got through all kinds of things, from traumatic births to pelvic floor gadgets. There are such things. And the importance of putting yourself first when it comes to rehab, especially when you set yourself a big challenge.
So, as you may be aware, Chris and Vassos are very into running. They do lots of marathons, and Vassos is very involved with parkrun and stuff like that. And so from when I joined the team, which is almost 2 years ago now, they've kept saying to me, oh, you come running with us, come and do the Amsterdam Marathon with us, or come to Runfest. And I'd always go, no. I was doing fitness, so I would do like boot camps and that sort of thing, but running I just wasn't doing. And there was a main reason why I wasn't doing running, and it was pelvic floor issues. And it was one of those things where I thought, when I run, I have pelvic floor problems, so I will choose not to run and I will do other forms of exercise. And then it was last November, and Vassos was writing a book about running, I think his third book about running. And he wanted to kind of follow a story of somebody who didn't run and basically get them to run the marathon. And he would kind of do their training program and help them along. So he was discussing it with me, and he said, I think I'll get my wife to do it. So I'll speak to Caroline and get her to do it and get her on board. And then that will work really well. And I was going, yeah, that's a great idea. I'm sure Caroline would be really into it. Anyway, then he came back into work the next day and he went, no, she was not up for it at all. But I was thinking, what about you? And my initial reaction was that sort of, when your tummy just drops. No, it's not me. And then I kind of thought, you know what? I was turning 40 in those sort of 12 months. It's the London Marathon. What a privilege to run the London Marathon. Mm-hmm. To do it with the support of somebody like Vassos, who knows everything there is to know about running. What is stopping me? Well, what's stopping me is my pelvic floor. And actually, if I'm going to sort it out, this is the perfect time to do it. So I said, right, Vassos, you're on. I'm going to do it, but I need to get myself sorted. And so he said, right, I'll draw you up a training timetable. You need to start doing some short runs between now and Christmas, and then we'll really get into it after Christmas. So I thought, right, I need to get myself sorted. So spoke to a couple of people. I might need to, does anybody know anybody? And even those conversations were a little bit sort of, has anybody had an issue or anybody sorted out this sort of thing?
Yeah.
So to give you my background, I had 3 children in 3 years, basically.
Wow.
3 vaginal deliveries. The first one was quite traumatic. It was a 27-hour labour. In the end, I was frozen up for a cesarean, but they delivered him with the ventouse and forceps in theatre.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
And at the time, I may have been told, but I don't remember being told. I had a 3rd-degree tear, but I was unaware of it. So when I had my second, 19 months later, we went for the midwifery-led care, which was it was in the hospital. It was just on the other side of the corridor. Rooms were the same. It had a bouncing ball in it, but it meant if you did need medical intervention, it was just across the way. And we had this amazing midwife, and I gave birth on Christmas Day. And I remember I was up on my hands and knees, and this amazing midwife was massaging my lower back, telling me where to push when the contractions came. And Alex says that as the baby crowned, he said the midwife gave a very sharp intake of breath and just went, oh, did she have a 3rd-degree tear last time? And Alex said, oh, I don't know, I don't think so. And she went, I think she did. And she's just gone right along the scar line.
Oh my goodness.
So I had him on gas and air. They then had to give me an epidural to do my stitches and send me into theatre.
Yeah.
Galling.
I can totally relate to that. Yeah.
So then when it came to my third, so we said, look, 3rd-degree tear, 2 3rd-degree tears, quite severe blood loss with both of them, sort of borderline transfusion. They were like, okay, this time around you've definitely got to be under medical care. And I had the midwife who was on duty. I had a student midwife who'd been following my pregnancy for her course. And so when I went into labour, she rocked up. And then I also had the head midwife who was on duty for that shift, who basically said to me, look, I've seen your notes, you've had 2 3rd-degree tears, you're not going to have another one. I've been working for 19 years and I've never had a 3rd-degree tear on a delivery, and I'm not going to let you have one.
Wow.
Which was great to hear. So I remember with him, I was stood up in the room. So I was in like a medical gown and everything. It was much more medicalised, but they were allowing me to labour the way I needed to. They weren't sort of restricting me. So I was stood up and I had these 3 women around me and Alex, and I was having contractions, and I said, oh, this one's different, this one's different. And they were like, no, you're fine. I was like, no, this one's different. And the student midwife lifted up my gown and just went, shit, baby's head.
Oh.
And all 3 of them just went, stop pushing. And the 3 of them physically lifted me up, put me on the bed. And the head midwife, she was like, I've got to hold your perineum, shoved her hand up, held it, and I delivered him with a 2nd-degree tear. So that was amazing for me.
I was going to say that probably felt like quite an achievement.
I was like, yay! So then she stitched me up, and it was such a different experience, because obviously with 3rd-degree tears with the first 2 and being on epidurals, I had a catheter in, I was in overnight. I didn't have any of the sort of, it was all in theatre. So with my third, so she stitched me up and she said, right, if you want to just go and have a shower, bathroom's there. I said, sorry, what?
Wow.
What? So she's like, yeah, we'll go, we'll leave you to it. So he was already feeding at that point. She said, when he's finished feeding, give him to Alex, and then you can go and have a shower and sort yourself out. So that was very unreal. And I remember just sort of getting off the bed, feeling so wobbly. But yeah, getting into the shower. So, first time around, you pack that bag, don't you, with all your lovely body wash and your moisturiser and all of that. And I didn't have any of that third time round. Oh yeah, makeup for your new baby pictures. So yeah, got into the shower and had a shower, and that was amazing to be able to do that within, I think he was only about half an hour old. So then they said, you can go home. I was like, I can go home now? They're like, yeah, you don't need to stay in overnight. And I said, to be honest, there's nowhere for me to sleep. All the grandparents are in the house. And also there are 2 other children, aged 3 and 1.5. I'd quite like a night in hospital. So they said, well, given the blood loss on your previous deliveries, that will keep you in for 24 hours just to keep an eye on you. So that was good. So that was kind of my history. So in terms of what I put my body through, there was very little recovery time in between each delivery.
Gosh, yeah.
I then had 3 kids, all very young, and running around doing that. And actually after I had my third, so I took a year's maternity leave with each, and then with my third I took an extra year on top. So I had 2 years off with him. And you're just so physical, and I was aware that there were some issues, but it was nothing that was preventing me from doing what I felt I needed to do, which was keep these 3 children alive. And they become your absolute priority, and you just kind of fall down the list as long as you're sort of clean and clothed, nothing else is a priority really. And I remember when Dara was about 3, and I was leaking. So I was wearing Tena Ladies, I was wearing incontinence pads, possibly not every day, but on and off, probably most days. And I thought, that's probably not the way we should be going forward. I was only in my mid-30s at that point. So I went to the doctor and I said, look, I think I've got a bit of an issue. And they were great. And they said, look, we'll refer you to a gynecological physiotherapist, which was a mouthful. And I remember going to see her, and I remember I had nobody to look after my youngest, so I had to take him with me. And Oh, I remember luckily she had a whole box of toys because I had to lie up on a bed and she had to do an internal exam behind the curtain. And luckily there was this box of trucks, which thankfully kept him occupied. Because, if he'd put his head around the curtain...
I've been there. Yeah, I've been for a pessary fitting with 2 under 4s.
My word.
And an iPad and a promise of sweets.
Oh, yeah, bribery.
Look at the iPad. You can have sweets when we do. Do not look round the curtain.
Yeah, whatever it takes. And this physio, she was lovely. I had been in between seeing the GP and seeing the physio, which probably took a couple of months to get the referral through. I'd been doing the exercises because also I hadn't been doing any exercises. So I've been doing the exercises and I did find there was improvement. Mm-hmm. So I think when I saw the physio and I said, look, there has been improvement. And also I think, we can be very guilty. Women can be very guilty of not putting our hands up and saying, actually, I need to be sorted. I need to come first and I need to be fixed. And so I was just like, look, you know what? There's been some improvement. I'll just keep doing the exercises. It's fine. And I guess, she probably thought, okay, well, if she says it's fine, then it's fine. So she was like, okay, just keep doing the exercises. If there are any future problems, do get back in touch with your GP. So that was kind of that really. And I kept doing the exercises for a bit. And then I stopped doing the exercises because...
life.
I had 3 children and a career, and you just, and it's easier to wear a pad than to do the exercises, if I'm honest. So it came to the marathon, and I thought, well, this is not going to be pretty if I don't get this sorted. So I spoke to a friend who said, I know a great female physio who is good at pelvic floor stuff. So I went to see Emma James, and the woman is a godsend. So I went to see her it was before Christmas, and I went into the room and she was sat there and she just said, so tell me your story. And you're just like, oh, okay. And there's just that release in just talking about yourself. It's so nice to talk about yourself.
When do you ever get a chance to kind of go through that or process that or just have that space to explore it? Yeah.
And she just sat and she just listened. And then she said, okay, well, we can fix this. And I just burst into tears because I felt heard. Mm-hmm. And it's not that other people in my life weren't listening to me. I just wasn't talking. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't have the time or the space because I had so many other things and so many other people to look after before me.
Yeah.
And it was like a huge weight lifted off me. And she said, I think it is just, as you said, 3 kids in 3 years and tears and your muscles are just exhausted and injured. And I remember listening to one of your podcasts, Helen, and you talk about how it's an injury. And once you put that in your head, it's how you reframe your thinking. It's an injury that needs to be fixed. If I had an Achilles injury in my ankle, or if I had a shoulder injury which was stopping me from doing a sport that I loved, I would do everything in my power to get that fixed. So why am I not fixing this injury?
Yeah, that blew my mind. That I don't know why I'd never thought about it in those terms, but I just hadn't. And like you say, once you reframe it, it makes it less scary actually, and less all present and all powerful.
And also it makes it seem less self-indulgent to want to fix it, because I think there's very much this sense that wearing an incontinence pad or not being able to jump is almost a badge of honor. Like it's what we go through as women, and it's not. Getting an injury from running is not what you go through as a runner. It is to an extent, but then the rest of the journey is that you fix that. Getting, having incontinence issues because you've had children, yes, it is part of the story, but you've got to get to the next chapter where you fix it. You don't just put up with it. And I think so many of us just accept it as part of motherhood. And not just motherhood, so many women who haven't had children suffer from it. And I think it's so important that, like you've said, you treat it as an injury. It's people talk about mental health issues, and somebody close to me talks about it as in, if she had a broken leg, she would put a cast on it. So if she has mental health issues, she uses medication or meditation to fix it. If you have incontinence issues, you fix it with exercise, possibly with surgery for some people. But it is not just something that you should have to put up with and that you should be quiet about. You know, it's something that can be fixed.
Yeah, it's not just a byproduct of having children. It's not something you have to put up with. It's not.
Yes.
It's not just a full stop.
So my situation had become worse. And I was wearing an incontinence pad every single day. I didn't leak every day, but there was always the possibility of a sneeze or running to catch the tube or, you know, just you know, one of the kids catching me unawares. And depending on what you're wearing, that could go either way. And I think the point at which I started wearing one every day. So my eldest had a music concert at school. He was only in year 4. He'd been playing the saxophone for a year or two. And I was determined to make this music concert, and it was at 6:00, and I was getting the tube out of London, and I'd, you know, strategized it down to the last minute. I'd asked them to put him on at the end of the concert. So I'd like rushed out. So I was still working at the BBC at the time. So I was doing the business bulletins on BBC News. So I'd rushed from the studio, literally ran from the studio to the tube, still in a full face of makeup. Got to the tube, made my train, got to my station where I'd parked my car, jumped in the car, drove to the school. I was getting texts from other mums who were there saying, he's at the end, he's not on yet. There's 6 to go before him. So I pulled up and I had to park quite far down from the school because loads of people were parked. And I ran from my car. And as I ran, I could feel myself. And I didn't want to miss it.
Oh, love.
And I ran into the hall and I got in at the back just before he went up. And I saw him and I was so proud of him, but I had to hold my bag in front of me. I was wearing a blue dress and it looked like somebody had just thrown a pint of water at me.
I'm sorry, that is so rubbish. And there'll be so many other women who have had that experience, not in that same school hall, but in different walks of life, at work, in the office, in a meeting, whatever it is. Oh, it's not.
But I made the concert, and he was brilliant.
You did, because you're a mum, and you're like, whatever, I'm gonna be there. Oh.
Even if I'm gonna wet myself, I will be there. Oh. So from that point, I started wearing a pad every day, and that was probably 2 years before then deciding to do the marathon and deciding that I needed to get it sorted. So Emma has been amazing. I think if anybody can find a women's physio who can really hear them, oh my word, hold on to that woman tightly. So we went, she was like, right, you're trying to run a marathon. She said, it's not ideal. I'd rather have had maybe 6 months with you before you started trying to do something that intense on your body, but we'll work with what we've got. So we went for a sort of multi-pronged attack using the Pelviva. Have you seen these Pelviva things?
So yeah, a little bit. I'm really interested. There's a lot of, I think, what is called femtech around at the moment, and I think it's really interesting, and I'd like to know more about it. Things that kind of do little electric pulses into your pelvic floor to train it, or
so I've done 3 different things, and they're probably at 3 different sort of price points. So I've used the Secret Whispers, which I think are a brilliant way for anybody to start. And she contacted me and Emma after she heard me talking on the radio about it, and she sent me a set of her Secret Whispers.
What's that? That's weights,
so
is it?
Secret Whispers are like weights. They look like small ping pong balls.
It all sounds so crazy, doesn't it? Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Get some vaginal weights,
Yeah, fantastic. They kind of sit in a sort of white silicone sort of holder. You push them up into you. I mean, some people might need to use a lubricant, but they're very soft. They do go in quite easily. And then you do your 15 quick pulses, and your, up for 3 in the lift, hold for 5, down for 3 floors. You do all of that, but with the weights in to increase the work that your muscles are doing. And those are very inexpensive, and they've been great because you can do them whenever. Then I've also been using the Pelviva, and that looks like a large tampon, sits in your vagina, and it does like little pulses, but it does it all, so you don't have to do those contractions. And with that, you can sit down and watch telly, or you can walk around. Today I had a Pelviva in while doing a sort of 6-minute HIIT workout of like squats and lunges to again, really get those muscles working and to really get the most out of it. With the Pelviva, they recommend that you do one every other day for 3 months. So that full course is about 600 quid, which is quite expensive. But, I think even if you just you can buy them in a much smaller packet just to see if it works for you. And then there's the Pelvi Power Chair, which is like this Game of Thrones sort of hilarious piece of kit.
I saw a picture of it on your Instagram, like a dentist chair or something.
It's like a dentist chair for your vagina. So you sit on it and they turn it on and they can increase the intensity, but it's essentially a magnetic coil that sits under the seat. And it feels like there's an army of like tiny little elves with little hammers, like hammering up underneath your bum. So I've tried all 3 of those, but I was also doing all of the marathon training as well. So I was running half marathons, doing 16 miles. So I was still leaking and leaking significantly, like on the longer runs. Like when I did my 16-mile run, I wore a maxi pad and had to squat behind a hedge to change my entirely full maxi pad while my friend looked out for dog walkers, like kind of after about 12 miles. Then we hit March, marathon gets cancelled, everybody goes into lockdown.
Oh, of course, right, yeah.
Everything stops. And like everybody else, I'm suddenly working from home, broadcasting from the front room, while also homeschooling 3 children with Alex's help. But he's doing all his home tasking stuff. He's busier than he's ever been. Your Tesco shop has gone from 15 minutes online to a 3-hour event while you're queuing and getting around the store. All those things that we used to be able to, get help with school, with cleaning the house, all of that is now, we're doing all of that. So everything else just went to the back burner.
And routine as well. There is like, it just goes out of the window. So if you manage to sort of pocket in those little times for yourself where you could do a few pelvic floor exercises or whatever it is, it just blew up, didn't it?
It's just gone. So everything kind of stopped. But for me, what I kept doing was I was like, right, I don't have to do these long runs, but I'm going to keep running for my mental health, because I had found that's what I had discovered was that I loved running.
Yeah.
And I had not done it for so long because of pelvic floor things. And I've done other, I do some personal training sessions. I do yoga on an app on my phone. I do boot camp, really enjoyed that. But actually the running, I found a freedom in it and a real sort of independence. And I loved running on my own, and I loved running with a friend. Obviously in lockdown, I couldn't run with a friend. I was running on my own again. But we were really lucky where we live. There's loads of trails through woods and stuff. And that was just so, I loved it. One day, I went for a run one day and I went running through, there was nobody there. And I just ran screaming at the top of my voice. And it was so liberating. I came out the other end of the woods and there was a woman there with her dog. And I was like, oh, hi, sorry, did you just hear me screaming in the woods? She said, no, I didn't actually. And I was like, oh, good. But if you want to have a scream, those woods are the place to do it. And she was like, well, I might just give it a try. But it was fantastic.
It always makes me think of Phoebe out of Friends. You know how she runs in that really mad style, kind of legs and arms going all over the place when no one's watching. And it's just
running. It's not about technique. It's about freedom.
Yeah.
But what I did realise was that I was running 3 miles. I could do 3 miles dry.
And that was an improvement.
Oh, unbelievable. So I would say, so by sort of 6 weeks to 2 months after I'd started seeing Emma, I had stopped wearing pads every day. And I will be forever grateful to her for that. And now that lockdown is easing and, the marathon may or may not be happening in the autumn. I think we're going to hear about that quite soon. I want to do it when it happens. Whether it happens in the autumn, whether it happens next spring, I want to do it. But I've also said to Emma, I think the idea that I could run 24 miles dry is probably unrealistic, no matter how much work we do. That is a huge impact on your body. What I want to get to, I would like to get to 5 miles dry by September, because I would love to do a 5-mile run and at the end of it meet my husband and my kids for a coffee without having to firstly deal with a heavy wet pad, sodden leggings and let's be honest, sometimes a little bit of nappy rash. You know, that's where I want to get to. If I can get to that, I would be so proud of my body to have recovered from, you know, going through the carrying and the birth of 3 children. To have recovered to run 5 miles dry would be magical to me.
Not everyone is going to be looking to run a marathon, but it seems to me that with the right support, there is progress to be made. I think it's always worth saying that I have no affiliation with any of the products that were mentioned. As you heard Rachel say, some of them have been gifted to her. And technology for pelvic floors, Femtech, and the research around that, I think it's fascinating. It's definitely something I'm interested in exploring. So hopefully in the next series we'll be talking about that. None of this, of course, is intended as medical advice. So please seek out your own professional help, but don't ignore your issues. Put yourself first for once. And if returning to running or other kinds of exercise is important to you, then I can really recommend that you listen to episode 6 of this series, Finding Fitness, for some great advice on how to do that safely. And if you're new to all of this, then please do listen to episode 2, Pelvic Floor Problems 101. It's the conversation that I wish I'd had when I first found out about my prolapse. A couple of other quick things to mention. Lovely Luce Brett from episode 5 launches her book this week on Thursday, the 25th of June. It's called PMSL, or How I Literally Pissed Myself Laughing and Survived the Last Taboo to Tell the Tale. And after the runaway success of episode 8, Pop Club, last week, I'm so glad to say that pop clubs are being formed via my Instagram page right now. So if you're looking to meet other women with pelvic floor dysfunction, I know that sounds really weird, but I think it could be brilliant, then check out @WhyMumsDon'tJump on Instagram and get involved. Tell me what you think, spread the word, tell a friend or spam a WhatsApp group. Let's end the stigma together. You've been listening to Why Mums Don't Jump with me, Helen Ledwick. You can find me on Instagram or you can find me online at whymumsdon'tjump.com. Bye for now.